Hello, folks. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. My name is Todor Vodov, and this is the 19th episode of Keeping It Realistic, third one for 2024. In this show, in collaboration with Chaos, we are going through the projects posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last 7 days, talking about their strengths, but also pointing out their weaknesses and eventually suggesting ways to improve them. We do this as a live event so that you can actively participate in the discussion of the work, so please feel invited to do so. I see you already being active in the comments. Welcome everyone. Hi, how are you? I hope you had a good start of the week. I see Abdi here, Mohammad. Abdi says hi Theo and hello to all. Nice to see you here. Helen is with us. Let's begin. Today we have really exciting stuff to talk about in the beginning of the show. You know, this is usually our announcement phase before we dive into the projects. As usual, we will take a second to appreciate today's cover image. It's a very interesting mix of a very nature-bound exterior we see here to the left, a classic but also dark and gritty interior in the middle, and this very aesthetically pleasing monochrome minimalism that we see on the right side. The works were contributed by Amjed, Leslie, and Mohammad. For the last two, Leslie and Mohammad, it is the first time, so congrats on that. And of course, congratulations to Amjed as well. Another topic that we need to talk about in the beginning is obviously our challenge of the month, or 2 months, better say, December 2023 and January 2024, called Winter in the City. You have 1 more week until, or better said, 8 days until the end of January in order to submit your work. Deadline is on January 31st. You see here, it's like in 8 days. If you haven't started doing this, then now is the time to do so. If you have started but you have maybe left it somewhere midway, now it's time to go back to it and finish it. Remember, the 3 best works will get prizes in form of licenses for Chaos render software, and in this case social media mention, which obviously means exposure, as long as the works meet Chaos Group's quality standards, of course. I see Amit joined us, Sebastian, Mohammad. Hi to all of you. You're really on time because we'll be talking about some really exciting stuff now, and that I really can't wait to share with you. It's about it's about the new shows in the group. You know, during the last show, Claudio from Chaos was in the comments. He hinted something about new shows. In the meantime, I had a talk with him, and I know a bit more about those shows, and today I will even introduce one of them to you. But let's maybe talk about how the whole idea is supposed to be based on this calendar. Here we'll take the month of June 2024 just as an example. So usually in the moment, every week on Tuesday we have our show running in the moment, the Keeping It Realistic show with me, this live review show. It happens every week on Tuesday at the same time via Facebook Live, and it's always at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, at least in my time zone. And then we have Thursdays. Usually it is once a month on the third Thursday. We have the Chaos Campus live show with Nikos and his awesome guests. It also happens at that time, 4 p.m. in the afternoon, again, my time zone. And what we have here, what is marked green in this calendar, is the other Thursdays being free slots where the other shows can be placed in. Now, it's important to know the other shows will be vastly different, and they will cover really different areas of our field. And now I will be able to present to you, or to at least hint to you, one of those 3 shows that we are going to have soon. It will start in the second half of February. It will probably be February 22nd or 29th. It depends on certain circumstances. And the show will be the CG Architect podcast. CG Architect, I think, is something that we all know, because this is like this central hub for ArchViz artists. It is, as it says here, the heart of ArchViz. I truly agree with this. Everyone who is into ArchViz should at least know CG Architect. And what we will be getting is actually none other than CG Architect's program manager. This is the actual person behind CG Architect, Ricardo Eloy, as a host of this show. And the goal of it would be introducing interesting and exciting artists from literally all over the world. And to quote Ricardo on this, giving spotlight to artists and studios who otherwise won't get it. The shows will be pre-recorded. They will be probably around 30 minutes. But again, the idea is that they will be uploaded once it's time for the show to go on. They will be uploaded at the same time as the other Chaos events. So probably, let's say, on the last Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. So there is a certain regularity in the schedule, and it's not just random events, or that you don't know that when to expect that show, but it will come always at the same time once a month. Also, I told you about the pilot episode. Personally, I'm very, very much looking to this. And if you ask yourself, well, okay, we already have the Chaos Campus live show with Nikos that introduces some artists and studios to us, and now we have a second show that does it. Where's the difference? Well, the difference is, I think that with the Chaos Campus live show, we are introduced to the real big fish. Like, we have those massive studios you saw somewhere last time. They have more than 20 years of history behind their back. They have worked for some of my most famous and biggest brands out there. So they're obviously very, very big. And lots of the other studios or artists that Nikos introduces to us are these really very known people or studios. Whereas this show, the CG Architect podcast, is, as far as I understand it, I had a talk with Ricardo yesterday. It is meant to present to us people or small studios who haven't maybe won all the prizes or have worked for all the biggest brands out there, but are from all over the world, so that we see studios that are, let's say, closer to what and who we are, but still offer something which is very interesting or unique or special or just really, really good. So I think that there is actually a big difference, despite both shows being more or less interviews with artists or studios. At the end, there will be a big difference between those two. And again, it will be a pre-recorded show, so you won't be able to directly participate, but I can imagine that once the show is posted, if you have questions, that Ricardo will probably be answering those in the comments. I see Amit being happy with the announcement. He says, well, that's a good move. Will there be a Q&A sessions for the podcasts, or with pre-recorded videos we can't? I know it's a silly question, but just thought to ask it. Or will it be discussed in Keep It Realistic Messenger group? Well, I think we can surely discuss it in the Keeping It Realistic chat, but I can also talk with Ricardo about this. I think it's very important that we give our feedback to all the shows, including Keeping It Realistic, but also to Nikos and Ricardo. I think it's very important that we actually always tell what we think about it, and if there is some room for improvement or maybe some good ideas on our side, we can always share them with the hosts of those shows. So in this case, let's say maybe it is possible for Ricardo to share who his guest is going to be, and we can then maybe ask some questions and he can take them over for the interview and then share the interview with some of those questions included. This would be a pretty cool option, I think, but this is something, as a new show, we'll have to figure it out. You know how in the beginning of Keeping It Realistic, we also had some issues here and there, we cleared them out, but, something that wants to be good is constantly evolving. So probably, I don't know if, let's say, the first session will have this Q&A part, but maybe after the second one we can suggest this to Ricardo, and maybe this will be included in the future. I think this is a good idea. Now, regarding this schedule, because you see the Tuesdays have the Keeping It Realistic show, the Thursdays already will have two shows like the Chaos Campus live show and now the CG Architects podcast. So it's a lot to take. There are hours of stuff, which is awesome on the one side, of course, but on the other side, it's of course a lot of time that you can spend watching all those shows. So we thought maybe we should shorten Keeping It Realistic a bit, because this obviously is the longest show, like most episodes are 2 hours or even longer, and reduce its length by a bit. Now, this is the type of show which just needs a certain length to it, because we do large in-depth reviews of a lot of works, so we cannot do it in half an hour. This just doesn't work. I don't think that even an hour is enough, but we'll aim at 1.5 hours, which is still half an hour less than it is now. Because, it was last October, I think, when Chi said that the sessions shouldn't be longer than 1.5 hours, because after that, it's very difficult to keep focus on what's happening. And you see this at universities, those blocks of lectures are never longer than 1.5 hours without a break, because students simply cannot keep concentrated for so long. And also, it's kind of exhausting, to be honest, both for you as an audience and for me as a host as well. And the thing is, like last time, the last show was 2 hours and 7 minutes, and we managed to squeeze in 16 projects, which is obviously a big achievement, but it was also kind of stressful, to be honest. And we actually don't want this. Like, our work days are stressful enough, and when this show comes, it shouldn't be more stress atop of our usual stress. It actually should be the opposite. We should be able to freely talk about your works, interact with each other in the comments, discuss stuff, generally have a good time together. So in order to achieve this, we will have to limit the number of projects that I'll be talking about here to 7 at max. And which 7 projects these are gonna be is something that there are 2 ways to go about. One way is to just take the first come, first serve rule, which is obviously the easiest one, or it could be me actively selecting which projects to talk about. Now, this obviously has a bit more responsibility to it, because in the end, if I don't choose, let's say, a certain artist's project, they can get offended because of this and blame me for this and so on. But we believe that this is actually the better option, because let's say it's the first come, first serve, and it's always the same artist who come first. They will always be served, and all the other people will be just left behind, and this is not very good. And now I will try to create a mix of projects that are both those types of projects that have, let's say, lots of issues to them, that I'll be giving reviews to, but also projects that are really, really good, so that we also have good examples and that we also keep the interest of all types of artists active. Because if I only concentrate on the ones with the most issues, the artists who are more skilled or more seasoned will probably stop sharing their works in this group. On the contrary, if I concentrate on the seasoned artists, then the ones who probably need the feedback the most won't be getting it. So I'll try to make a mix, and of course I will keep an eye on the attendance list. So when I talked about the work of a certain artist at one show, I will skip their work probably at the next show in order to have a fair and not one-sided show. But generally, I really want to hear from you. What do you think about this new show, the CG Architect podcast? And also, how do you see the changes about keeping it realistic? In my opinion, with those 5 shows that we will have all together, this will turn, like this Chaos Campus will turn into a real virtual campus, like a real university where, in a university you have different professors and they offer different lectures and you can go take them all or just a selection of them, but there is so much offering. And let's not forget, all of this is for absolutely free. And the chaos type of free, it's not with just like a continuous product placement show, or there are no ads neither in the Chaos Campus Live show nor in the Keeping It Realistic show. There are no strings attached. You see how the show goes live on Facebook Live. You jump in, you don't feel like it, you jump out. That's it. Nobody wants you to buy anything, to subscribe to anything, not even newsletters, right? You can just do whatever you please. So all of this is being done to really establish a very strong campus in this group and make it a real strong community, if not the strongest, which is when it comes about visualization. And I'm really, really excited about this, to be honest. Amit says, thanks, Theo, for clarification. And yes, that would be nice to ask questions beforehand and they can be taken up during the podcast if there is time for it. I think this is a good idea, really. I'll talk with Ricardo, or we all will be talking with him, let's say, after he uploads the first episode in the second half of February. We can just reach out to him with our suggestions and ideas. The way I see him, he's very open to those, so we can clearly do it. I see Leslie and Flatson joined us. This is really on time because I want to start talking about today's projects. Today will be the first day where we will try this new 7 project at max rule, and where we will try to achieve those 1.5 hours. Given that it is, let's say, one of the first times, maybe we won't ace it right away, maybe it would be a bit longer, but I will do my best. And with this being said, let's jump right into the group. Now, despite concentrating on 7 projects more, I would still gladly, as long as we have the option for this, because since the show started, since Keeping It Realistic was introduced, the activity in the group skyrocketed. There is so much more activity, so many more projects are being posted, there is so much to talk about. So at some point it is obvious that even if I briefly mention all the projects, it will be 2 hours or even longer. This is just the way it is. This is a great impact, I'm very proud of it, but of course it has a small backside, which is me not being able to talk about absolutely everything. Today, however, we don't have so many projects being posted, so I'll at least try to mention the ones that I won't be talking this much about or reviewing in a classical sense of this word. And the first project that is exactly one of those would be this one by Flatson. So I'll just briefly mention it and what he says, and I'll show you the images and then we can move on. Flatson writes, "Hello everyone, this is my recent exterior visualization created for educational purpose in SketchUp with V-Ray 6. Let's take a closer look. It seems like Flatson is preparing a course, and these are some shots of the building that the students will be either recreating or at least working with. And to be honest, I find it very well chosen because it is not too complex, it is not over the top, but it's still a great playground for experimenting and learning. And if we take a look at the reactions here, the number of likes, the comments here, we will see that I'm not the only one who sees it like this. It seems like everybody is very excited about this project and possibly the upcoming course. So I would say keep an eye on Flatson and a possible announcement for that course. Flatson, you're in the comments. If there is some information about the course, say it now. And of course, if you're interested in it, just join it. You will learn how to do stuff like this in SketchUp and V-Ray. And of course, you'll also support a fellow artist, which is always great. And with this being said, we can move on to Leslie and the first review project for today. Leslie with his dark and moody bedroom that we saw on our cover image as well. He writes, "Hello everyone, here is a scene of a dark and moody interior I created as a practice. It's done in 3ds Max Corona with the help of Quixel and Photoshop. As always, I would love to read your thoughts. Thank you." There are some thoughts to be read here in the comments already, and the other thoughts you will hear now live, dear Leslie. Your description is pretty great, and the image presentation is also very, very good. I like the nicely varied angles and the visual consistency of those shots. Personally, if I were you, I would have picked, let's say, this close-up with a bust and would have put it somewhere here, just for the sake of diversifying the order of these images a bit. But this is just a small nitpick. So let's dive into the images and take a closer look. Generally speaking, I'll just go through the images one by one, and then we'll go back to this main shot and we can talk a bit more. But generally speaking, this is one great work. I think it came first at the top 5 images of the day in the VW Art Club on January 18th, if I'm not mistaken, which is really a big achievement. And I gotta congratulate you about this. And the fact that you actually are currently learning Max and Corona, you're not as seasoned in it, you haven't been using it for years, you're currently learning it, and you managed to place first in this daily challenge in the VW Art Club is really, really great. So it makes the whole achievement of yours more impressive. So these are the images. The design, I think that this one is good to talk about the design. I like the design a lot. It is classic, but at the same time also pretty timeless. We have a mix of this, let's say, more modern architecture with the nightstands and the lamps, and those vintage pieces like the bench here or the dresser, and it works really good. The whole scene is also very pleasantly composed. We have this symmetry here, and on the sides where we don't have it because the window is only on the right side, on the opposite side we have this bright stuff like the open book, the bust, which evens and balances it all out. Modeling and materials are quite nice as well. It seems like you have used a lot of Quixel stuff, both material-wise and asset-wise, and obviously this looks very authentic because this is scanned stuff. You can see it on the floor or on this one. It was very nicely visible on the close-up. It has wonderful detail, and of course it looks very, very authentic. Material-wise, you have also chosen a very smart and pleasant color scheme. I think it fits the usage of a bedroom. It is a bit laid back. It's more or less wood, so brown, beige, with the rest being monochrome. It really greatly fuses all the elements together. Only thing about the materials that I'm not sure about is this baldachin probably being a tiny bit too transparent the way it is now. I understand that if you made it less transparent, it will stick out too much, but what you can do then is just make it less white and a bit grayer, a bit darker, and then it will even out. Also, other than that, I love how the materials have those nice recognizable features to them. Like you can see it here on the curtain or here on the fabrics. It is really nicely done. Regarding the framing and the lighting, I think we can just go through the images one by one so that everybody sees them, because this is a really good example, and this is exactly what I meant. We also need good examples, not only works that have, let's say, lots of problems or issues or mistakes in them. We need the good examples because we learn from them. So here you chose to start with this image, which is more on the emotional side, which is okay, because even though it doesn't show the whole scene, it still introduces the topic that it is a bedroom and the mood. And it has some great framing to it, and the depth of field is also really, really cool. Next we have, let's say, something that I would call a main shot, which is both emotional but also very informational because it introduces us to the whole scene. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is very nicely balanced with some really good contrast to it. After that, we have the animation, which is more or less the same shots, and it's not a real animation, it's like an animated sequence of still images, most likely made out of light mix, because with light mix you can just render this final scene, and if you have, let's say, every lamp on a different layer and this one here as well, you can then just save out images with all the lamps being turned on and off the way you want it to. And this is like why I always use light mix in my works. Every final render that I save out, I use light mix on, because this is just so convenient. It's not only about the lamps, but I can always still fix or maybe fine-tune the lighting even after finishing my work, and this gives so much flexibility. And what's more, it's not only the artificial light, you can also change the intensity of your global illumination or your HDRI, your main light source, and this is just so convenient that I always use light mix, and to me this is one of the best developments of the recent times when it comes to render engines. You say, yeah, made it as a GIF in Photoshop. Yeah, I can imagine. This is the easiest way, even though if you added a bit of sound with a beat which is synced with the moments when those lights jump on, I think it would be even cooler. You have seen examples of this, I'm sure. Next we have this close-up, which is really sweet, but this isn't a shot you can really start your introduction of this scene with, because let's go back a bit. You chose to start with a close-up, and I praise this. Why? Because this close-up doesn't look like it's trying to sell something. We see some pillows here. It's obviously not trying to sell me pillows. It's just about introducing the viewer to a bedroom. Whereas this other close-up here, this could easily be an advertisement for this nightstand, or even better, for the lamp. Just imagine a price tag somewhere here. It could be like a promotional shot for this type of furniture. Whereas the first shot was just an emotional shot leading the viewer into the situation you're creating here. Next we have another good close-up. What I really like about this one is how you have this plain wall here, which isn't boring and monotonous. Why? Because it has the shadow of the bust on it, which immediately makes it more interesting. What I don't like as much here is that you decided to cut off the very edge of the book, which I don't think is a good idea. Either make it fit full in, you can just push the book inwards a bit, or just cut off a bit more, just, like this. Then you can place your main object in the middle. I mean, there is rule of thirds, there is golden ratio and so on, but having an object in the middle is also not wrong, right? So you can easily do this, something like this, or even more. Then you have less of this, generally speaking, more monotonous black wall to the side. Next, we have a very nice and sweet shot, which works because of the good assets and materials that you have used. And this shows how important these are. What we have here is wonderful materials. Let's zoom in. Let's take a look at the pot, for example, and the plant itself. The curtain material, they are so realistic. You have the feeling that you exactly know how they feel once you touch them. And this makes a big difference. And the other thing that is visible here is, look at the edges. They are chamfered, or you have round edges. It doesn't matter that much. They built this nice gradient from the bright area to the dark area, or here in the corner. And this shows how important and how significant it is to have fine modeling, great materials, great assets. Another great shot, to be honest, I really like how you placed this blurry glass in the foreground in front of this monotonous pillow, because now, even though the glass isn't in focus and it isn't very important, it is still very recognizable as such. This is some really good framing on your side here. And this one, this is, I would say, a perfect example of chiaroscuro. It's just beautiful to see the contrast and the light shadow play happening on this shot. And for those of you who maybe don't know what chiaroscuro is, or have maybe heard about it but don't really know what it is, I want to share this article. I really like this one. You see, it's a bit of a longer one, but it wonderfully explains where chiaroscuro comes from, what it means, how it works. I will share it in the comments now, so you can take a look at it. Remember, we have to be knowledgeable. We have to also know theory, not only be practical artists. Obviously, what we do has a lot of, just execution, but we also need to know what we are talking about, and we need to know theory. And here, I can also recommend you a book by Ciro Sannino. I have it in my library behind me. This is probably the first book that introduced me to chiaroscuro. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. I don't know Italian. But this is another link I will share with you that you might be interested in, because, again, you see how beautiful this is. And last, we have this cool angled view, which is more or less like the main shot, just angled with some nice framing to it. So all in all, dear Leslie, it seems like Max and Corona is the right combination for you, so just keep it up this way. This is awesome. I see Amit wrote something that I'll read now. In the close-up shot of the chair, if the intensity of the standing lap would be increased a bit more, I think it would be more dramatic. What are your thoughts about this? This is a great question. This is a really great question. I also thought about this because, like, the way Leslie has built his scene here is, it mostly relies on the global illumination coming from the outside, probably from a light plane or the GI or an HDRI, and the artificial lighting is very secondary in the hierarchy of this project. So having the lamp in this chiaroscuro shot have such low intensity is just intact with all the other lamps in this project. My first thought was also that it could be stronger, that the illumination could be stronger, but it needs to be very finely done, because if it is overdone, the chiaroscuro effect will be lost, because you see already that there is some of the light produced by this lamp onto the wall. So if this wall starts really glowing up because of a lot of illumination coming from the lamp, then the chiaroscuro effect will be lost and it would be a pity. So these are my thoughts about it. But I also thought about it, so yeah. Next, we have a project by Abbas. He has uploaded 2 projects this week. I'd rather talk about the other one, but yeah, we can quickly take a look at what he calls here study area. It's a kind of a simple yet pretty clean and sweet project. I'm a big fan of the last shot, to be honest, because it's almost like a stock photo. It's just so pleasantly organized and so clean that it is just a joy to look at. And I also very much like this shattered glass material. It's cool, especially when it has this diffuse lighting to it. The only thing I don't like here is that we see that the texture is mirrored, which isn't that great. But generally, this is something you don't see that often. It's quite unique, so maybe just an idea for your future projects is pretty cool. Next we have Abdi. I will read what he has written about this project. Turn your radio audio on. I won't do this because I don't want this video to be muted in certain countries, and there is always a danger for this. Happened already once, and since then I don't play music more in these videos, but the audio in this case is really significant and essential actually for the experience. So if you watch it on your own, make sure to turn on the audio as he says. He continues, created in 3ds Max using TyFlow plugin. 3 single objects were created for the TyFlow setup: the guiding pipes, the pins, and the camshaft segment, the knocks. So these are the knocks down here. Abdi used the array modifier in order to create both the required amount of the object as well as the twist of the camshaft segments, aligned all objects accordingly to each other. Only 2 keyframes were used for the animation of a single cam segment rotation. The up and down going pins are functioning entirely based on the physics simulation created by TyFlow. So the whole animation is just 2 keyframes. This is very special. Chaos Vantage was used for the live preview and the final render output using 500 samples, which took around 35 seconds per frame to render. 100 frames were rendered in total and looped in post-production in order to match the desired length of the animation based on the background music. Enjoy. It's always a pleasure to have those detailed project descriptions because they just provide us with so much information that we can use as a base to discuss. I often see people reacting to Abdi's posts and saying, yeah, why did you use so many samples, or are they enough, and stuff like this. And this is only possible if we describe our projects as detailed as possible. Regarding the music, again, I cannot play it, but it truly makes a difference here. It greatly matches the animation as well. To me, the whole thing is like some kind of a meditation machine. Now, I know that a lot of people usually associate meditation with complete silence, but the truth is that complete silence is very difficult to achieve. Like, you have a dog barking somewhere in the distance, or a construction site nearby, car horns, whatever. There is always something. So what a lot of people who like to meditate do instead is they chant this because this sound very much resonates in your head and first lets you discard all the other sounds, and second lets you discard all your thoughts. So this machine, if you hear it, it sounds like this chanting machine that will help you concentrate and meditate better. And also regarding the animation itself, it's really fluid, it's almost cathartic to look at it. Regarding the visuals, however, I'll play it once again. Regarding the visuals, I find them to be a tad underwhelming. The knocks are quite cool, especially being lit on the in and outsides. But I think that the whole scene should have been, again, to have this cathartic impression on the viewer, I think that it should have been more clean, like those oddly satisfying loop animations. I haven't found one to show you what I mean. Stuff like this. where you can just watch it for hours because it's just so freeing for all your senses. So this is what I imagine, like more really, really, really simple setup, and then you have this continuous animation. This would be my advice to you, dear Abdi. And then we can move on to Mohammad, who writes, "Hello, I would like to share with you my latest project, Minimalistic Master Bedroom. Software used here is 3ds Max and Corona." So let's take a look at this. In the meantime, presentation-wise, the description is nice, but I'm missing a bit of info about the type of project. Is it like commercial work, or is it maybe a personal exercise of yours? And if it is, let's say, a personal exercise, what did you want to train with it? Was it the architectural design or photorealistic rendering, lighting, or whatever? The more information you provide with your description, the better. Regarding the image presentation, it is also very, very cool. Also very consistent looking. If we take a look at this, all the images visually consistent, nicely varied angles. So let's just dive in. It's like 25 images. Obviously, we won't be able to talk about all of them in detail, but let's talk about some general stuff first. I see Leslie says, "Thank you very much for the feedback." You're very welcome, dear Leslie. Abdi says, Thank you, WorldTale, for mentioning it, for your valuable inputs. Much appreciated." You're welcome again, dear Abdi. Mohammad says, "Hello, yes, it is a personal project." Okay, good to know. And then you can share with us gladly what you wanted to focus on. Is there just like the whole situation or something in particular, like lighting, composition, whatever? Generally speaking, this is just my point of view. I find that there is something very exciting to this interior design. Like, the idea behind it is simulating a mix of classic and modern architecture, as if the classic architecture, with all the moldings and stuff, was already there, and then somebody came and said, "You know what? Let's say it's under historic preservation cover, whatever. We cannot demolish it, but what we can do is we can build a new wall in front of the old wall." And this is what this type of design suggests. However, as everything here seems to be new, this is just a visual trick. So if something like this would be implemented in real life, they would just build the concrete wall with the moldings and stuff just until here, and then the rest will be just bare concrete without anything on it, and then they will make those front wall installations as they do them in bathrooms with those new modern sleek panels in front of the concrete wall, and all the other installations, which are usually within the concrete wall, which is obviously a lot of work to make, like piping, electrical cables and so on, will be within the space between this sleek cover wall and the concrete wall in the back. So this is really nice architectural trick, and this is something that we don't see every day, and actually quite interesting in my opinion. However, it is very minimalistic, first of all, and it relies really only on a few shades of gray, not even 50. So it is really tricky to depict, because it's like a monocolor scheme that we have here, and something like this is difficult to make, and it requires a lot of sensitivity and also a lot of precision on the artist side to be pulled off right. However, it seems like Mohammad had the needed set of skills and qualifications to actually make it work, because this session is really, really pleasant, and I want to go through the shots with you one by one, starting with the classic bedroom shot. Then we have something which is probably on the opposite side of the bed. Now here, again, I won't comment on every shot, but here this is something that I really want to mention. If the carpet that we see on the floor on the second shot is the same carpet as this one, this means two things for me. You have used a lot of heavy camera clipping for this to be possible, to be showcased this way. And on the second shot, you have probably also even removed the bed in order to have this clean carpet in the front. Now, I think that this camera clipping topic, you're in the comments, so please confirm this or deny it if I'm wrong. I think that this camera clipping topic or approach has provided you with some really nice looking results in the case of this project. However, we must always know that using camera clipping always comes at the expense of distorting the space perception. So people will never be able to see this space the way it is depicted here. Usually when we try to visualize a certain space, we act as if we are digital photographers. And the thing is that in real life, digital photographers cannot just clip through the walls into the room next door and then just take shots, right? They cannot do this. They are confined within the limits of the spaces they are photographing, and this is it. So I think in terms of visually presenting a space, I think that it is more fair not to use camera clipping, and this is why I personally never use it. It's really for ethical reasons. I'm not a big fan of camera clipping because, again, I think it distorts the perception of the space. It makes the space often look way bigger than it actually is. On the other side, however, if you wanted to actually implement this project, okay, you want to build it at your home, and the builders come and you want to show them how this wall is supposed to look like, then it's great to use camera clipping, because with camera clipping you can actually use very normal focal length without having this very strong FOV. So if you have the normal focal length value, then everything doesn't seem as distorted as it would look like if you use like a very low focal length value in order to fit within the walls of this space. So I think camera clipping is good when you want to be a bit more technical. So when you want to just show people how this wall is supposed to look like once built. But if you want to show how it feels to be in this apartment, then it is better to actually not use camera clipping, but just go with lower values for your focal length. Just a small rant, and again, this is my personal view, but I wanted to let you know about all of this. So let's go through the shots. Yeah, Mohammad says, yeah, I hid the bed for the camera composition. Okay, thought so. Nevertheless, the shots here have mostly really good framing. Like almost all of them are really perfectly framed. It's very interesting to see this space because on this shot we see it from the side and it looks kind of normal sized and confined. And then we have the two views which are along those long axes here, and it looks just like so long and deep. Just take a look at this. This just looks like it's 5, 6, 7 meters long, and it's actually probably just, I don't know, 3 or something. So yeah, the camera topic here is a big one, but I must admit that what you have produced in the end is just so nice to look at and so exciting that I don't give too much of a damn about the camera in this case. These are just beautiful images. They all look great in your portfolio. Something like this. This is so beautifully framed. This is just so elegant in its minimalism. It's just awesome. This one as well. This corner. Everything here is pretty cool. And once we have the feeling that it's over with the master bedroom, you bring us to the bathroom. And this is another very exciting area. Everything is very catalog-like. I don't relate much to those spaces, but I really like them. They're just awesome. Just take a look at this. And what I really must compliment here is how you managed to actually use assets here, but you never went out of those, you never left this color scheme that you've set. So you see there are shampoo and shower gel bottles here, but they're all still in this more or less monochrome color scheme that you've set, which is very skillfully done. And those shots are probably my favorite ones because they very much look like product shots for, I don't know, bath stuff, the faucet, the mirror, whatever. And they are just great to look at. And here we have another example of how important good materials are. Just take a look. Again, everything here is more or less monochrome. There isn't this strong color contrast, but still we can very much almost feel that this is soft fabric and this is like polished concrete and this is some type of metal. Every material is just perfectly executed. It's awesome. It's a pleasure to look at this, really. And then also all the perfect details. You see all the gaps, all the chamfers, everything is exactly the way it should be. And this is why I like this project so much. So, dear Mohammed, congrats on this. I really enjoyed this session very, very much. And also 25 images, it's probably a record since we started the show that somebody really shared 25 images of a project. Amit says, I think, Theo, you should create a tutorial for placing cameras in small area and rendering great shots showing or covering the entire space as a buyer would want to get when she buys. Well, the thing is, again, this is Ulfat is joining us today. Great to see you. She says, congrats, Mohammed. Very nice project. Mohammed says, thank you for an amazing feedback. You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. As for what Amit meant, I mean, yeah, I can think about a tutorial like this. The thing is, there is no real true or false. It's just about perception. The one thing is when we want to be more technical and we use camera clipping because we can really nicely show, let's say, an architectural element. This is also the same for kitchen walls or something. You have the builders there, you want to show them an image of how the thing looks like. This is why we mostly actually do 2D stuff from a CAD software, right? Because everything there is without any distortion. If the kitchen is very narrow and you place the camera in front of all of those cupboards and you get an, let's say, focal length value of 15 and then everything is so massively distorted, it would be very difficult for the builders to comprehend how this kitchen front is actually supposed to look like. But again, if you want to show what an actual person sees, then I think it is better to not use camera clipping. But again, this is more of my personal opinion rather than the ultimate truth. But I'll think about a tutorial like this, gladly. Next we have Danny saying, good evening, I have a question for you. Who can help me? I work with SketchUp, V-Ray, Vantage. How can you get really realistic people with 3ds Max? This is the example. First of all, Danny, it would be cool if you occasionally use a full stop here and there. I don't have the lung capacity to read sentences like this. And second of all, I'm not sure if I get it right, and this is supposed to be a good example of 3D people because I cannot really agree with this statement. Just take a look at the girl to the right. Her feet are hovering probably 15-20 centimeters above the floor. Her knees are clipping through the table. Then we have the dude on the other side who looks like he's dying or has probably been dead for a while. Just look at how pale he is. I don't think that this is like the best example. But to answer the question, obviously, we have the Chaos Cosmos, we have a ton of people there, like very, very many people that you can choose from here. And of course, in the meantime, even though like AI is fairly new part of our field, in the meantime, the way over stable diffusion to make those people look more realistic, more lifelike, is more or less become a classic. So this is what I will recommend in situations like this. Just choose some fitting people, make sure that the people actually go together well, because this girl, first of all, she's not meant to sit on a chair, she's meant to sit on a, I don't know, on a stone, on a boulder somewhere, or on a step of stairs. And the way she's dressed, it's more like beach attire, whereas those two dudes are like in full business attire, which simply doesn't match so greatly. So find people who have the same clothing in terms of season, in terms of location, put them together. I mean, you can even here say you want sitting people, find the ones who fit together nicely, and then use, oh, sorry, I wanted to show you this in the end, but I will do so. And then you can just make them more realistic with the help of Stable Diffusion. There are lots of tutorials for this out there. I think that even our friend Mario has a course, a small course on this, so maybe you want to check this out. Amit says, I said that because sometimes the rooms are small and the client wants to see everything in it in 2-3 shots, and it becomes difficult with regular FOV. Sorry if I have been too pushy on you, Theo. This was just a suggestion. Yeah, I very much understand. This is a big topic though, and more or less you always have these two options. Like either you have this heavy FOV or you go for camera clipping, especially in small bathrooms and kitchens. This is just the way. I don't think there is right or wrong. It's just the way that suits your client and your needs better. Next we have Abbas, who writes, check out this cool basement with green and white colors in 3D. The comfy furniture makes it a super chill and stylish place to hang out. So this is more or less a basement lounge, which is kind of strange to me, to be honest, but why not? Let's talk about it. The description itself is good, but it would be interesting to know if this is a commercial one. I asked Abbas, he said, yeah, it's a commercial. It's the basement of a private house. Dear Abbas, instead of having 3 links to your studio, because this is just too self-promotional, concentrate more on the project rather than self-promoting your business, because I don't think that somebody in this group will directly hire you. If somebody wants to work with you on a project, I think they will know your work and they'll just directly reach out on Facebook. Or again, it's always okay to have one link, but don't turn this into a marketplace, okay? As for the image presentation, it is visually consistent, this is true, but it kind of appears chaotic and slightly cluttered, to be honest. Now let's dive into the images, and in the meantime, I gotta admit that the design here I find to be quite strange, because it looks like it's almost a public space with so many sitting options, because you see on the second shot there's like 3 sitting corners. Like this could easily fit, I don't know, 20-30 people, but maybe just the people who live in that house have lots of friends and they always invite them in large groups and they go down in the basement and sit together. I don't know, it's just a bit strange to me as an architect. Nevertheless, I find the modeling and the materials that you have used, they seem pretty nice, pretty clean. The color palette is very welcoming, actually. It has this beige and the green. It's a nice color combination, and the rest is more or less grayish. So this is pretty cool. The assets that you have used have some really decent quality to them. The decorations fit the space. They're not too much. If we take a look at this, there is some deco stuff here and there, but it's not overdone. Also, the 3 angles, generally speaking, manage to actually present the room and its contents to the viewer, especially the second 2, so this one and this one. As for the first one, I'm not a huge fan of it. First of all, like the foreground is kind of empty. None of the sitting areas are properly visible or presented. You see, everything is hidden behind something, or we see the backside of it. Here, like the main actors seem to be this mirror column and maybe this chair and this bench, but again, this doesn't feel really right. And also everything is so uniformly lit. Like there is no zoning, there is nothing that really sticks out. It's just kind of uniform. So I don't like this that much. The second one I find to be better, but still it is difficult to point out a clear area of focus. Like, what is this image supposed to show me? And the answer of everything is not a good one, because there should be something. Let's say you want to show the furniture, then show the furniture, but I don't need to concentrate on the lamps and the ceiling and the door and everything. There should be something like a main actor, like a main focus. And if we see other stuff next to it, that's okay, but the main actor should be clear, and this really isn't the case. As a possible solution, you can try, seems that you have used camera clipping here. As a possible solution, you can try to use some depth of field on this seating so that we can at least concentrate more onto this middle area, but I don't think that it will really solve the whole issue. The third shot is probably the clearest and best of them all. It seems the less cluttered, but still both sitting areas aren't properly visible. So regarding the framing as a solution, I think that you should actually divide this angle into two angles. Just shift the camera to the right and concentrate on this area. You can then blur out the sitting area in the front because it's more or less mirrored version of this one. Use depth of field on it and let us see this area properly, and then make a second shot to the left. And regarding the lighting, now if we shift the camera to the right, we'll have our main light source coming from behind the camera, which, as we know, usually results in a flat, contrastless image. However, after making other shots during the day, for this one, you can go for a blue hour, for example, so that the light coming from behind your back will just be this bluish, cold light, which isn't so much illuminating, it's more atmospheric. So it won't make the image flat. And then, which is very important here, use the light that you have, especially those spots, more deliberately. Currently, it looks like those spots are just visibly turned on, but they produce no light. You can see it easily here on this wall. The two spots are facing the wall, but there is no sign of any light being emitted onto it. So you have so many spots. In order to create zones with light, use those spots and make them light up, let's say, the tables, because usually in situations like this, what you want to see is the table. Let's say people gather there to play board games, to have a drink, to whatever. They want to see the table because this is where something happens. This is where they put their drink on, this is where they play the board games on, and so on. You don't want to light up the sitting areas that much because you don't want to have a spot directly into your face. So if you were to concentrate the lights from the spots onto those tables and to generally reduce the global illumination, make it more cold, then I think you will have a nicer image which has some lighting hierarchy to it, and which is has more order to it. So I think in conclusion that you have the space as such is a solid base for a project, but the visualizations aren't quite there yet. If I were you, Abbas, I would rework those two aspects, the framing and the lighting, especially the lighting, before adding this to my portfolio. Luckily for you, however, the next masterclass, Archviz masterclass with creative lighting with Nikos, is just in 2 days on January 25th. So if you haven't registered to it, go see it. I'm sure that watching Nikos talk and show stuff will inspire you to rethink your lighting. And also, I think that the next project that is shared here, this is kindly shared by Abdi, it's 11 tips for lighting renderings to boost photorealism, will also be the right one for you. By the way, the writer of this awesome article is none other than Ricardo Eloy, whose show we'll be enjoying in a month. So this is awesome. This is a really cool article with lots of examples, lots of good knowledge. Again, we need to be knowledgeable, so if you haven't checked it out, go through it, read it. I know all of this takes time, I know it, but we gotta learn, we gotta advance. Something like this I usually do in the late evenings where everybody else is gone to bed. I just sit and learn new stuff. It doesn't matter if it's stable diffusion or learning or reading something like this. you just gotta do it. It doesn't work otherwise, unfortunately. Amit says the orange vase on the left hand side should be color changed as it doesn't fit into the scheme. Which one do you mean? Orange vase. Orange vase, orange vase, orange vase. Oh, this one. Yeah, this is true. This one. I think it's copper or something, but yeah, this should be desaturated massively. That's true. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next we have Amjed with a design for a very interesting villa. He writes, "Hello, my design for a villa. I hope you like it. It's done in Revit, Blender, Psychos, and Photoshop." Short but informative presentation, to be honest. Now, if your project is generally a bit more on the unusual side, let's put it like this, as it is the case with this villa, gladly share a bit more info on its background. Like, did you do the design? Why did you go for a design like this? What were the challenges? Stuff like this. Regarding the image presentation, however, everything seems pretty nice, visually consistent, not especially varied though, because we are more or less always viewing this house facade from slightly different angles. But let's take a closer look. Now, I think we can all agree that the design of this villa is quite unusual, quite unique as well. We can say it. It looks, to me, it really looks like a combination of Le Corbusier house, something like Villa Savoie, and an industrial production hall or something. It's just a mix of those two. And because of those pretty rough surroundings, it also looks slightly abandoned too. But yeah, let's take a look at the positive sides first. Again, I enjoy this unique design. It definitely sticks out among all those glossy villas with pools and full glazings and so on. It sticks out, it's different, and I like this. The lighting is also quite pleasant, especially in combination with the translucency on those plants. It looks very fresh, it has a positive vibe to it. And also this type of lighting, let's say this actually is an abandoned scene, one of those not necessarily post-apocalyptic ones, but let's say this is an abandoned scene, then it is actually cool to see it having a light like this and not the usual dark sky, black clouds and so on. The color scheme I also enjoy because it is more or less this complementary red that we see on the facade, on the plants here, on the pickup, on the soil, against or together with the green and blue that we have elsewhere. The compositions are also mostly okay. They achieve, especially here, you have achieved this quite nice natural framing. I really like this. Third shot, however, is not so great because the framing feels off. Like if the car was parked somewhere here and it fits into the framing and the cropping, then I think it could work. But the way it is now, where the car barely fits or it actually doesn't quite fit, then I don't think this is so great in this case. And now let's talk about this abandoned feeling, okay? Because even though I enjoy it, I have the feeling that this is not what you actually wanted to achieve. Now, today, Amjed is not in the chat, so we cannot ask him, but I have the feeling that my guess is that what he aimed at was creating natural-looking surroundings and a villa that doesn't look like it was built just yesterday, like brand new, which is a great line of thought, but I think he just went overboard with it. So let's take a look at the holes in the street, for example. Like, they're massive. They're really over the top. Just look at how deep they are. No wonder that this car looks the way it does, because probably it was bought like last week and then people drove it for a week and then it looks like this. I mean, this is too much. This is just over the top. And I really want to know, because looking at this is very low poly, and it makes me question if the whole street and maybe the surrounding areas are some kind of a scan, a photogrammetry maybe, Or maybe the other option that I can imagine is this being an aerial texture with some displacement to it. This can also be it, because there are like those 8K or 10K aerial textures with like a whole surrounding streets, meadows, and what's on, and they have often displacement to them, and this can explain this very, very rough looking street. Also, if this was handmade, so to speak, I would advise you to go easier on the noise modifier or on the displacement modifier, whatever it is, so that the surrounding greenery, the ground isn't so wavy and so bumpy. And also material-wise, gladly go easier on stuff like leaks and dirt, because it can really easily be overdone, sending the wrong message, as it is in this case where it just looks abandoned. And one last thing, I would suggest removing those prism bars here and putting some nice glazing, some curtains, and some interior visible on the inside, so that this house doesn't end up looking abandoned, but more like something that people actually live in. So it's an interesting work, but I think it needs more refining before becoming part of your portfolio, dear Amjed. Next we have something interesting, a recreation of a small house in Paraguay. Let's read what Mohammad, this time it's another Mohammad Kabir, what he has to say about it. Visualization of a small house by Equipo de Arquitectura in San Bernardino, Paraguay. It's done in Max and Corona Render 9. The description is okay, but it lacks one very important clarification, and this is that it is a recreation of a real-life project. I asked you about this in the comments, and you were honest enough to tell me about this, so that's okay, but in future, please make sure to add this. Again, there is nothing to be ashamed about. I'm sure, I can guarantee that every artist that you admire out there has done at least several of those recreations in order to train their skills and to become a better artist. This is one of the best exercises one can do. So again, there is nothing to be ashamed about it. And actually, if you want to be ashamed about something, then it would be not mentioning that it is a recreation, or trying to hide this and not being upfront about it, and not the reality of it just being a reproduction of an existing project. Regarding the image presentation, I find it to be pretty sweet. I like the composition of how the text is in the middle. You have the main shot up here and then the 3 closer shots down here. It's pretty cool. So let's take a look at this. Before we do, however, we can briefly take a moment to take a look at the original project. This is it. This is the whole photo session about it. There are a few shots. Really pleasant place to be, with a lot of privacy to it. Now this is a matter of personal taste. I personally wouldn't want to feel like I'm in a prison the whole day just looking at the surrounding wall. But again, the people here certainly have their privacy. So back to the first shot, which is this one. And now we can take a look at Mohammad's shots. I have a direct comparison between them, so we'll first view the original and then Mohammad's version of it. So with the first comparison on the first shot, it's visible that the proportions are quite different. The aspect ratio of the image, the proportions of the camera proportions, and mostly the ones of the house. Like the original house is wider, bigger, and yours seems to be more confined. And I think it's a bit of a pity, because to me, this spaciousness is one of the main features of this home. And you didn't quite capture it. Also, the foreground. Now, your grass looks nice, but it is too monotonous, first of all, and it's also too evenly exposed. If you take a look at the original, you will see that there are those dark shadows here, which enable the house to visually stick out, because it's illuminated by the sun, but the foreground isn't. In your case, what we have here, let's quickly analyze it. What we have here, composition-wise, is that we have the house here. Here we have a good frame to it. But down here we don't have any frame at all. This means that the composition is, so to speak, flowing out of the image. So you definitely need some shadows here, something like this. So if you had it like this, and we try to analyze it once again, you will see that this time you have something like a secondary frame down here. So this time the composition isn't flowing out because you have this edge here. So we have it here, and in the middle we have our main object of interest. So to fix this, just place some trees behind the camera, and this will fix two issues at the same time. First, the shadows that you're missing here, and second, the reflections that are missing in the glazing. Regarding the contrast of your image compared to the original, I must say that I actually like the contrast of your shots because the reference photos seem to be kind of muted. And I know this is a deliberate choice of the photographer, but to my personal liking, it's a bit too much. So I enjoy your contrast. However, if we take a look at the grass and this pseudo monstera plant, I just don't know what it is, you will see that they almost share the same color and tonality here. It's just like different forms, but the color is the same. Whereas in your case, we have this very yellowish grass and this very greenish plant, and they don't work together well. So you gotta fix this for sure. But let's go to the second shot, which is this one. This is the original. It shows an angled view of the corner of the house. You see the whole house plus some surroundings, and you decided to zoom in. So obviously the original shot is a bit more impressive because it just shows the whole building. Now, seen on its own, your shot is also a pleasant one. To be honest, it's just a different shot. The framing could slightly be optimized. I would personally end it somewhere here because this additional area here doesn't add anything to the shot. So that we concentrate just more on the interior and just briefly show how the outer wall looks like. The rest, I think the viewer can imagine. Modeling and texture wise, now that we're closer to the house, some issues become visible. Your edges definitely need chamfering. The wood material on the ceiling seems overscaled, judging by the pattern, and it's also too bumpy. And generally, try to be a bit to fine-tune your work a bit more. If you watch it only from a great distance, like the first shot, then you can leave it as it is. But if you plan to zoom in, you need all those soft edges and really good materials. Third shot is the interior shot. I must admit that I'm not a big fan of the reference photo here. I think it should have been lower, not to include so much ceiling, and also not to cut off the legs of this furniture. In your case, you even managed to fit in the table, which I think is a good thing. Now, you decided to slightly angle the camera. I'm not a fan of this. I think this is unnecessary and kind of visually annoying, because if you choose a slight angle like you did here, it doesn't seem like a deliberate choice, but more like imprecision on your side. So if you want to make an angled view, then gladly go for a clear angle, something like 10, 15 degrees, so that it's visible that it was a deliberate choice of yours and not just a lack of precision. Also, what you miss here a bit is this background greenery, which is very beautiful to look at. In the original, we have those trees in the distance, some distant haze as well. You don't have it at all. You only have the trees that are directly next to the wall. It's an easy solution. Two solutions actually, two options for this. Either scatter further trees and use a volume material to make this distant haze look on them, or the easier one, just use an HDRI in the background reflection and refraction override, and you'll get this nice surrounding greenery. And also, for an interior shot with a soft lighting like this, I also find your contrast to be way too high, to be honest, especially if we compare to the original. And then the last shot, this is the original, this is your version. So here you're getting in the better direction already, but again, you need to be more precise with like everything, with the building proportions, with the modeling details, with the scattering. Like you see, there is this ugly gap here. With the background, again, we're missing those trees, with the framing and so on. So I think that in general, this is one good idea for an exercise. I think this is a really nice project to recreate because you don't need any surroundings. You can just scatter random trees and then you have it. But you need to study your reference very carefully. Like in the beginning, analyze it and be clear about what its main features are and what its main strengths are. Also, what captured your attention. All of these you have to be able to reproduce. And remember, this analyzing part, this is actually a part of the recreational process. It is not only just, starting and trying to build stuff. You need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then you will achieve better results, believe me. And even though we may, again, not make the 1.5 hours, but I still think that it is a good point for me to show you some examples of mine so that you see what I mean. And you see here, this is one of those is the reference, the other one is my version of it. You see how same-ish they are, and this is a part of the exercise. You need to try to match the original as exact as possible. And obviously, there are some things like, backgrounds and some types of furniture pieces and so on that are not essential. You can just swap them for something which looks similar. But when it comes to the main points, once you see your work next to the original, you should get the same feeling as it is in this case, right? And then you can go and actually work further on your version, on your own version. You can then try a different time of the day. You can try a different whatever mood setting, like I did here, for example. Here is another example. This shot, those skeletons. Here it is easier to distinguish which one is the original and which one is the recreation. But I didn't have stable diffusion back then when I did this. But I mean, other than that, if you take a look at the architecture, the proportions and everything, even the light, the reflections, everything is very, 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 very similar. And this is why you're doing those exercises. The closer you get to the original, the more you will learn from that exercise. So yeah, this is my image, and then I started playing with it. I started adding different angles. This one I think you know. Then I started even fooling around further. Scalfy. Here we have one bathroom, which again I tried to recreate as exact as possible. I didn't ace everything, but you see the general impression is very much the same. And then I use it to actually create this product shot, for example, because I didn't have a product shot in my portfolio, so I decided to actually create one. Use the scene that I have. I already have the lighting, I already have the nice surrounding, so I'll just place something there and take a shot of it, and then I'll have a product shot. So it's a win-win. Here, another example, you see the kitchen, and then again I started creating my own angles and close-ups. Here, this example I showed you last time, so I won't be showing it anymore. But just for you to see, it's very important when you recreate stuff. This is really one of the greatest exercises, but you really have to concentrate on it, and it really needs to make a lot of sense what you're doing. So analyze it and be sure what you're doing. And now let's move on to the next work, which is submitted by Amir. He writes, another different interior space commercial project done in Max and Corona. I notice now that I missed the cap of wire for the pendant light. Theodor Vodov mentioned that before. I'm sorry, Theo. As usual, your feedback is most welcome for improving. Thanks in advance. The black line is existing in the real space and can remove it. Now, I don't know what black line you refer to, but generally this is a good description. It certainly has a lot of personality to it, which I really enjoy, because in the meantime we are no strangers. Like we share history together, so it's normal to have insider jokes and refer to previous shows or situations in general. This just brings us closer together, right? And as for the image presentation, it is visually consistent, but really needs to be more varied and visually exciting, I think, to attract the viewer's attention. Now, in this case, Abdi was nice enough to and kind enough to leave you a great long review. Maybe let's read it. He says, "Hi Amir, the overall concept is pretty nice and well done. Not sure about the scaling of the chairs on the right side though. Compared to the office chairs, they look kind of huge. This is true, but I think this is just a type of chair. But this is not causing a huge issue. There are other things in your renders that need a closer attention. In your first image, there is an issue with the textures on the floor. The tiling seems to be off. You can see some edges that should clearly be removed." He's referring to those edges. The gap for the letter I, this is really, there is a gap here, but we don't see it. For letter I in the logo must get corrected as well, since it is not visible at all in all of the images, but the image number 4, the gap should be the same as you have it in the letter J. The second image is a bit confusing since it shows a white door. This is at least what I assume it is. This is the white door Abdi refers to. And a black area beneath it, which might be a room that is behind the white door. What is the purpose of that, or is it a shelf or something? The lamp that stands between the chairs in number 4 seems to be on, but if you take a closer look at the details of image 3 and 4, you see that the lamp is unplugged, and you can see that the wire on image number 4 sinks into the floor. This is visible here. I'll show it to you. The background behind the windows looks pretty washed out and overexposed in all of the images. These are the points that caught my attention, and paying a closer attention to them would not hurt your images in my opinion. Hopefully these inputs are helpful and useful to you. Keep on rocking. Cheers." Now, let's take a look at those images. I very much agree with everything that Abdi said. And I will also add the following points. I just wanted to show you this garage door stuff, which is very strange. And also the thing with the lamp, like the cable is here. It's obviously not plugged in, and also the cable is clipping through the floor. And let me add 2 things which I gotta say show a bit of laziness and carelessness on your side. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of this. Hi, Mario, by the way. So first of all, the pendants above the counter, like, they are just this lamp that you see here, taken off of its stand, turned 180 degrees, and just plug into the ceiling, which is an absolute no-go, man, because the lamps even have a light switch on them if we zoom on it. Just how do you imagine they get turned on? Do the people who work on the reception just climb onto the desk every morning and just turn on the light up here? This is just ridiculous. You cannot leave it like this. There are tons of lamps in let's say the Cosmos library, for example. If you need glass orbs, there are some. Just pick one which fits, but don't use a lazy solution like this. And the second thing, you cannot do the floor like this. It seems like on the floor this frame made out of dark marble was planned among those brighter tiles, and what you decided to do is you just extruded the form and make it clip out of the floor so that, you know, it's easier to make this way. But the way it is depicted now is that there is this edge here because this area is just overhanging, and this is obviously a massive trip hazard, and it's not meant to be this way. I will show you an example of mine. I don't know if I have it. Yeah, this one. I think you needed to make something like this, where there is just this frame, this black frame, which is done in another material, in other type of tile, and the way to do it isn't the way that you have taken. So, I mean, I know that oftentimes you folks don't have a lot of time to make the project very precise, but come on, let's just take a look at this. We'll just make a plane. Okay, then we'll turn it into an editable poly. Everything is a bit slower now as we are live. So yeah, I will insert it. I'll insert it once again. No, not to an element. I'll just make it like this. We'll stop the insetting, and then we'll have this area. Yeah, and that's it. This is how you make it. Now you can detach it. There are two ways. You can now detach it and then use two different materials on it and two different UV mappings, or you can just give it a different ID. So you make this a 2, and then the other one is a 1, and that's it. So please, it doesn't take so much time, so don't be lazy and do it the way it is supposed to do. Regarding the last shot, it is this one. I don't like the framing here because you have cut off the leg of this chair, which is a prime element of the scene. So either extend your cropping to the bottom to include the leg, or use some depth of field where you blur out this chair so that the viewer only concentrates or focuses on this area here. And as for the garage door, again, either close it completely or make something nice looking behind it, because currently it's just a big question mark, okay? I see you're here, I see you're commenting, you say it's not like that, it's a redesign for that area, and the client destroyed the wall to open two spaces together and said to me, leave the floor. Yeah, okay, maybe this is the type of floor that people really want to have. I cannot imagine, because again, this is something which is very difficult to clean. This is something where people will be tripping in. So this is a really, really weird design decision. But anyway, we try to wrap this up. We will try to have the show be shorter. So just as a conclusion, don't let the bad habits get the overhand again. You are, or you were, on a way of advancing, of improving a lot. So don't take steps back. Just keep it up in a good way, because there is a lot of potential to you. I know you also like drawing stuff. I know you're very creative, but in order for your works to shine, you really need to put all the attention and the effort. And once again, there is no obligation to immediately share your work. So once you finish it and then you see something like this and you're like, what the hell is this black area? Then don't share it. Work on it. Make a nice corridor behind it, or just some shelves here with some lighting, and then share it. You know, make sure that everything is really nicely done before you share it, because again, there is no second chance to leave a good first impression. And with this being said, I gotta move on. I see Mohammad said, thanks a lot, Theodore. I have noted down the important points. Glad to hear that. You're very welcome. And we arrive at the last project for today, which is Ahmad's project with a nice urban scene. He says, hi everyone, my latest render. I hope you like it. Presentation-wise, the description is kind, but obviously lacking a lot of infos. But because this is your first post we talk about in this show, let me explain once again. It is always useful to share the software combination that you use, because it makes it possible for me and for the group to give you more specific feedback and tips on it. And also gladly share some info on the type of project. Is it a commercial one? Is it a personal exercise? If so, what did you want to concentrate on? If it is a commercial one, what were the challenges? What was the task? And so on. The more, the better. Regarding the image itself, the presentation is really good because the image looks quite nice. First thing that sticks out to me when looking at this is this very pleasant urban atmosphere that comes out of this image. It's very authentic, very relatable. The modeling and the texturing also seem pretty much on point. It seems like the modeling on the building isn't too detailed, but given the distance between the camera and the building, this makes a lot of sense. But the areas which are closer, which is the street and the walkway here, they have a lot of nice, sweet detail to them, which is great. The materials look nice, especially in the street space. They're very, very good. Look and act naturally and authentically. Now, the lighting and the composition are a bit of a mixed bag. Now, let's talk about the lighting first. On the one hand, the lighting looks very natural, it's soft and pleasant, it has a pretty pleasant vibe to it. But seen in terms of lighting composition, it doesn't do justice to properly highlighting the building, in my opinion, because there are lots of parts of the building that are really shadowy and not really sticking out. And this is an example here. Now, if you were to describe what the purpose of this visualization is, let's say it's a commercial project and your goal was to show the facade, then I would say, yeah, you pretty much failed because you hit very much of the facade. If your goal, however, was to, let's say, show how nicely this building fits into the area and how it's not intrusive, how it's become part of the whole thing, then you pretty much aced it. This is why it is very important to know what you were supposed to do. Now back to the issue with the composition. On the one hand, the composition is very pleasant to look at as it is. On the other hand, however, if we try to, let's say, measure the ratios of the different parts, you will see that like almost 1/3 of the image is street and walkway. And if I move this up, you will see that this is exactly the same space that is also given to the building, being the main actor in this scenery. And the sky is even more. So again, the ratio between main actor being the building and secondary actors like the street, the walkway, the sky is a bit strange and maybe not that much in favor of the building, in my opinion. Also, I think that if you hinted some interiors, like some curtains and maybe a wall picture hanging here and there, some pendants and so on, I think the building will get this lived-in feeling, which always is more relatable than an empty building. But in conclusion, this is one really nice, authentic-looking exterior, Ahmed. So good work. And with this being said, we actually managed to talk about every project. Last thing that I want to show you is that the recording of the last Chaos Campus live show session is now on. You can take a look at it. It is an hour long and it has been really, really cool. The two folks, Nick and Laurie, really tried to answer every question with the most amount of information so that the one who asked the question will actually get a good answer and not just some generic stuff thrown at them, which I always appreciate and which is something that can be said for like every guest Nikos has had so far, which is, I think, awesome. And yeah, before we go, you already saw it because I ruined the surprise, but it's not a big surprise. I just wanted to show you something. This is a render done by Luca Rodolfi. I saw it in the VW Art Club. It's supposed to simulate oil on canvas, but in rendered form. There is no AI included. He even shared some screen capture of his model. And I just wanted to show it to you because I find it beautiful, I find it inspiring, and it reminds us that what we have at our hands has great power to it, and this power is not only for realistically visualizing beds and faucets and whatever, but also something like this. So maybe this inspires you, maybe it gives you an idea for your next free time exercise. There is so much we can do with the tools at our disposal, and it's actually always refreshing to see somebody actually taking a different way, a different approach, and doing something like this. And this is why I wanted to end today's session with this image. We made it in 1 hour and 40 minutes. I think this is good. Next time I'll try to do it in 1 hour and 30 minutes, and sometimes maybe even in just an hour if we are all busy, or myself included, so that we have more time for work. And with this being said, I want to thank you all for hanging out with me. It was a pleasure as usual. Thanks for being active, giving your suggestions, especially Amit today. It was great talking to you. You were a bit gone from the group for a while, was missing you, and glad to have you back. With this being said, let's not make it any longer. Stay safe, have a good rest of the week. I hope to see you again next week at the same time, same place. Rock on and stay healthy. Bye. Bye, folks.